John's remote.
Order. My name is Peter Berube. I'm the chairman of the Finance Committee, and we'll start to my right with Joyce Boyardi.
Joyce Boyardi.
Sarah Reyes.
Kathy McInnes.
Jody Garson.
John Lore.
Peter Underhill.
Patrick Gatto.
And we have
And John
Mr. John Stedman is joining us via Zoom. So we have full participation and attendance tonight. Thank you very much. A lot of people in the crowd. We'll get right into it. Mr. Gazinski, would you please start us off with some warrant discussion?
I asked Karen to join us to talk a little bit at a point about the personnel plan.
Good evening. Good evening.
Karen.
Good evening, everyone. I'll say first, I'm honored to be the only named speaker on your agenda this evening. I think you've received the final warrant, annual town meeting warrant, as well as the updated motions for the fall annual town meeting. Mr. Chair, unless you would like me to do otherwise, my intention is basically to go through the changes since your last meeting and updates for the committee, also as far as additional information you received.
Please, thank you.
So the first item actually is Article 3, and that is the personnel plan. This year, there are actually a number of changes to the plan. I think the last time that we've had any sizable changes to the plan was back in 2015, other than just the tweaks to the compensation schedule based on COLAs and so forth. So for that, I've asked Karen, our Assistant Town Administrator, to come in and talk a little bit about those changes. So I think everyone has received the personnel plan. There is one small tweak to that from what you received, but Karen will address that when she goes through it. So I'll turn it over to Karen for a few minutes.
Thank you, Mike. So I think if you want to start, we'll start with the salary schedule, if you have that, just to look through. So basically, I've highlighted anything that has changed or has been updated in yellow. This actually went before the town meeting in the spring and received a 2% increase across the board. Unfortunately, one of the lines was missed in the 2% increase, so the first change here is the dispatcher part-time. Highlighted in yellow is just those will be the new rates, including the 2% increase. At the bottom of the page, it says school traffic supervisors. That is no longer a position that we have in town, so we're removing that from the plan. And then on the very back, I had the wrong glasses, but that's okay, so bear with me. First off is we're adding the Finance Committee Assistant as a stipend position, so that is Deirdre's position. Officially, it was not listed anywhere. And lastly, if you look to the reserve police detail rate, in the police union contract this spring, they negotiated in that the detail rates would be the same for both private and in-town rates. They used to be two different rates. So we're trying to make everything the same across the board, consistent. So the chief had requested that we also include the reserve police detail rate and make that the same. So it will just be the same as the regular police union rate. For the most part, it's just retired officers that are from Millis who have 20 to 30 years of experience. We are very happy to have them. We want to continue to bring them in. It is very hard to fill the details these days, so that's the purpose of this. Do you have any questions on that?
Yeah.
Is there any question? Okay.
So essentially, I do have one question. So
Sure.
essentially, they'll have, the net result is that the retired officers would get a higher rate,
Correct.
which would be the same as everybody else.
Exactly.
Okay.
So exactly. It will just always reference
Thank you.
the police detail rate.
Thank you for clarifying.
So that is that. And then turning on to the actual, the bigger page here, the personnel plan itself. As you can see, the last time it had been amended was 11/2 of 2015, so it is long overdue. A lot of the things that I will just briefly touch on here are the language changing, changes, just updating to make it more current. So starting on your page 7, it's longevity, and it was just an increase to longevity. A lot of these things are matching some of the other union contracts that we have in town, so it's just going through that. Let's see. Page 8. It's just changing the way it's been paid. We have actually been doing this anyway. It used to be that they split up the payments, now they're all paid on the employee's date of hire. That's for longevity. Next is,
I'm sorry, Ms. Boyardi.
Sorry,
we're-
my apologies. What is longevity pay?
longevity pay, you get it's kind of like a bonus for being here X amount of years. So if you're with the town so many years, you get a payment on your anniversary. And it's in
Okay.
all of the union contracts across the board. It's a typical
Yeah, I
municipal
just
thing.
wasn't sure what it was, and I
I
just wanted.
think, right? Wouldn't you say it's municipalities in general always have that? I don't,
Common.
extremely common, right?
So after they've completed 5 years, they get $750 a year?
Yes, yes.
Like a bonus?
It's like a bonus for
Okay.
staying on and, yes.
Thank you.
No problem. Page 10, just changing the language from maternity leave to parental leave. Again, just making things more current. Page 11, under sick leave, this is just talking about the right to request a doctor's note after 3 days. Again, it was just an update to language to make it more current. Sick leave buyback is if you read about on it, it's upon retirement, you're able to buy back some of the sick leave that you did not use. Right now, we get 150 days of sick leave. You can accumulate up to 150 days. You don't get paid out for all 150 days. You get paid a maximum of 1,800. We're increasing that. We had put 2,200. It should actually read 2,500.
And
And
that's a one,
then
just
it's a-
clarification, that's a one-time payout upon retirement.
only retirement.
So not if someone leaves for another job. If they
Exactly.
file for their state retirement at the time of their departure, they get paid up to that amount if they have enough sick time to qualify.
Right.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Garzon?
And does that apply to all town employees, school, fire, police, or do the different contracts have different amounts?
Different contracts have different amounts.
Okay.
I should back up to say that there's only 3 full-time people covered by the personnel plan here. Everybody else is either a union employee or they're under an individual contract. And those are the DPW director, the council on aging director, and me.
And just a clarification too, or an added information, there's also stipend employees here and other
Right.
non-full-time employees that are included here that are not in any union contract. So this pretty much is a catch-all for anyone that doesn't have an individual employment contract or has within a collective bargaining agreement.
And again, some of these benefits that I'm reading would only be for the full-time benefited employees. You see there's on-call fire and some other things listed on the personnel plan. It does not apply to them. You have to be benefited, which is working 20 or more hours a week. Paid holidays, adding Juneteenth to the paid holidays, page 13. And then, the last page here, page 14 is changing the way that vacation is granted. Again, this is a schedule that's the same as the other union contracts that we have. And then at the bottom of page 14, it just talks about bereavement leave. Again, it's basically a change to the language for bereavement.
One second, if you would.
Sure.
Ms. Boyardi?
Thank you.
Sorry, Jim.
That's okay. You said it was only for full-time people for the sick leave buyback, but then you said 20 hours or more.
Yes, that's
20
full-time.
hours or more is considered full-time.
Under state law.
20
Gotcha.
hours or more is a benefited employee when you work for municipal government. It's very different from the
And
private sector.
that's a decision that's not made by locally,
Right.
that's under state law.
Oh, no, that's fine. I
Yeah,
full-time. I want to work full-time.
yes, I would like to put 20 hours. So bereavement relief, again, changes to the language. It includes, I think, these grandparents and a few other people at this point. And lastly, I think it's the last one here, page 15 is just a language change for jury duty. But if anyone has any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Garzon?
So I have prior version of this that was out in May. Did we not pass that at the May
Yes.
town meeting?
Yes, that was distributed back, I believe it was probably early April, mid-April. And at that time, Schedule C wasn't noted in the warrant article, so therefore we felt we couldn't legally proceed with that at that town meeting. So at that time, we had a discussion to push this off to this town meeting.
Okay, it
There's
was,
been no substantive change.
From what you saw.
yeah, it looked like
Yeah,
it was
it's very
the
similar.
same, but I couldn't find notes from what was passed and.
Yes, it was
not-
put in front of you, but then withdrawn
Yeah.
because of that glitch,
Okay,
so.
So that's why, exactly, this is normally something that we would do at the spring town meeting, that's a good point. And again, we would, again, same thing with this, it's basically just catch-up things, so.
yeah, I did notice that this was different from, and what we had passed was more comprehensive than just a few lines at spring.
Right now, I don't believe there's anything that's a monetary value really that will change significantly, except for the dispatcher part-time pay.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay,
The next article,
if you could hold on for 1 second. Somewhere in my plethora of notes. I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon,
I move that we recommend approval of Article, which one was it?
3.
3, to amend the personnel plan as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to recommend approval of Article 3 Personnel Plan amendments as just presented in the draft copy. Discussion. None heard. All those in favor say aye.
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 Vote passes unanimously. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next article I want to address is a new article, Article 5. And with that, I just want to say, for those of you that have been tracking all the articles by number, my apologies, but you're going to have to add one to every article after this article. But there is a new Article 5, which was voted to be inserted into the warrant by the Select Board at their meeting Monday night. This is for a transfer of $500,000 from free cash for road and sidewalk construction, design, repair, and maintenance. I think anyone who's been involved with the town at any level past 5 to 10 years knows that this has been a goal of the town and of the board to try to get funds to work on the town roads, make improvements, repave certain sections. The timing of this, oftentimes we do this type of article at the spring town meeting. There are advantages to doing this at this time. The main advantage is the timing of going out to bid and being able to go out to bid over the winter for a spring paving. Not only can have the paving done sooner, but potentially could be less expensive depending on how the market is and how the bid process goes. So, and this is from free cash. The finance director and I have reviewed the free cash numbers, and this would still leave ample funds for all the expected articles that we have for the spring town meeting. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this article. I think the DPW director is here as well, in case there's any specific questions for him.
This is great.
Mr. Chair?
I know.
Thank you.
I don't know why Pete Ruby isn't jumping up and down right now.
He wants more money.
Sorry.
We're looking at free cash.
All right, any
The finance
questions?
director is here as well, if you have any questions about.
Oh,
the-
I'm sure.
We'll get there, we'll get there.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Underhill?
Mr. Kaczynski, how do we arrive at the $500,000 number? Is this something that the DPW director requested, or is this just what the select board felt was available?
Well, honestly, we could use several million.
Right,
in this
yes,
account. But in looking at the free cash numbers and what could be done next year in a responsible way, we feel that this is an appropriate number. And Certainly, we can look in the spring to see if there's any additional funds that could be put towards this, but based upon not spending every dollar of free cash, we felt that this is probably the amount that we could safely move forward with in the fall.
Thank you.
Any more discussion and comments?
Oh, Mr. Stedman does.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Stedman, thanks for raising your hand.
is there any allocation between the three items that are in here for sidewalks, construction, design, repair, road maintenance, paving? How will it be determined which one of those is addressed in this, or is it just a carte blanche?
Well, this article gives flexibility to the town based on the bids and based on the needed projects for the DPW director, myself, and the select board to make sure that this money is best spent to improve the sidewalks and streets of the town. I don't know if Mr. McKay has any specific comments he wants to share or not, but
I'll just take a minute to comment while he's coming up, and that is that this was discussed, I went to the select board meeting on Monday. It was discussed at length. Several people, myself included, advocated for sidewalks, specific sidewalks, and I'll continue to advocate for sidewalks as I've done for the last couple of years. There's already $150,000 allocated, even appropriated, that the town got last year that will be over and above this $500,000. So I agree with what Mr. Kaczynski said, the leeway and the discretion is with the select board, the DPW, and some others. But Mr. McKay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we would continue with the process that we already had in place at the Springtown meeting, and what was presented to the select board was to replace sidewalks actually add 1,500 feet of sidewalk on Pleasant Street that would connect Village Street to right at the condo complex and replace those sidewalks there so they could walkable. And I think if you look at what that would make, it would be able to walk from the Charles River to all the way almost up to Oak Grove, all the way up Pleasant, across Main to Exchange Street. And next, what that was on the list that we presented was to replace the sidewalks and repave, whether it be reclaim or what we have to do to Plain Street. And we would add an additional sidewalk to, on Plain Street on the gas station side, from Main Street to the high school. I mean, if you go down there, you can see there is a tatted up type of sidewalk that is there, so we'd like to connect that. And if the funds, we would design a sidewalk on Spring Street that would connect from Main Street to Plain Street, and that would make that almost the whole walkable area of the school. I think that what I would also let the board know, Mr. Weiss is working on the Clean Streets project, and we've already, that was a grant that was received for the town, and we also have an ability to borrow up to $400,000. And Mr. Weiss will be presenting that. We've already reviewed projects that entail a lot of different intersections, cleaning up intersections, and replacing sidewalks in different areas. The main thing on Village Street, many years ago, we were looking at, we actually did a survey of Village Street from Main Street to Medway Town Line. And the idea of having that, to get it on the TIP program, what a TIP program is, the state will pay for it all. They'll actually, like they did on Route 109, they would come in, you would apply for it, and they would come in and replace, but you have to come up with the design money, and you have to pay for that. And when Route 109 was done back in, it was like 2000, thereabouts, it was before I moved to Millis, but it was right around, the 2000s, they started working on that project, and it finally, 3-4 years later, got on the TIP program. And the town had to pay for the design aspects of that, and they used for many years the Chapter 90 funding to make that part of the design phase of it. They didn't borrow the money or anything else like that. For a design of Village Street, and let me tell you, there's plenty of room on Village Street to put sidewalks on both sides of the street, because there's a vast area that people think it's their lawn, and it's not. It is a large right-of-way there. So the design of that back after we had the survey done, so we know what's ours, we know that's all done, and the state did that for us. We're looking at $900,000 for the design of it. And then once we get it all designed, then we could put it into a TIP program. So if the town wants to look into doing something like that, that would cost, the money's gotta come from somewhere. And that's where we are now. We know that, Spring Street from Main Street to Plain Street needs a sidewalk. From Tangerini's, that's in the design of the Clean Streets project that we have. We have, looking at bike lanes on Route 109, we're looking at changing all the, the warning detectors on sidewalks on 109. But, Mr. Weiss and myself will be back over the winter, to present that. But, John, I hope that answers some of your question. If you have any more before I go back.
I will jump on and have a little bit more discussion. I am not in favor, when I keep pushing for Village Street to be improved. And when I say improved, I mean repaired, and I'm not looking for I'm not pushing for sidewalks from Medway to Main Street. But there are existing sidewalks on Village Street that are in such disrepair that people usually, or I shouldn't say usually, frequently walk in the street. They and their dogs are in the street on the Southeast Millis Expressway, because that's what Village Street is. It is a parallel road to 109, and if you're coming from Medway or Bellingham or wherever, points west and south of here, you just assume take Village Street to get to Westwood and points east on your morning commute. And that's likely why there is such a wide right-of-way. It's a commuter way, and the sidewalks, they're overgrown, the vegetation encroaches on the sidewalks aren't level. I don't think I wouldn't advocate to wait for $8 or $9 million worth of design funds to then get state funding 10 years from now. And given the other items that are before us in town, I just assume allocate money to repair the sidewalks that are already there without having a massive engineering study or design done. I'll continue to keep saying that until there are sidewalks on Village Street.
Right, so just quickly on that, I mean, those sidewalks were put there when there was a lot of hotels in that area. They were put in back at the war, the WPA put those sidewalks in. They are in total disrepair. They should probably be ripped up and put grass, to replace them. They do, when you look at something of these type of projects, you look at something that, what's it servicing? So what would those sidewalks service? They don't go anywhere. They go from, they don't even make it to Pleasant Street where the sidewalk connects. They go from what was in front of the Jewish temple, and they go down to what was a Jewish hotel at one time, down on Route 109, which is now past the AMVets. There are sidewalk funds available in the sidewalk fund. That could, we could use those funds if the selectmen choose to do that. To use, state, whether it's DOT money that we get for Chapter 90, not sure if that would, meet the criteria for filing for that funding. But there is money there. And if I was gonna present something to the select board on a sidewalk on Village Street, I would want to add more to it. I would like to add more to maybe from the Medway Town Line to Plain Street. And then you're getting something that people are gonna walk on, not to, somebody walking their dog, once or twice a day down Village Street, because they don't go anywhere. We have a very bad intersection at Hamilford Street, which is probably the worst in the town. And we do have a design to, hopefully, to correct some of that issues. So we are working on it. There's probably anybody in this table can say where they live, why don't I have a sidewalk in front of my house? Millis doesn't have it. There's not funding, and it's part of that you presented for on your committee last week of the 18 to 20-something million dollars. Because it is in there, we to the capital planning committee, we put in there what's needed for roads and sidewalks, and I think that's probably one of your highest amount of, what's needed. So until we start to get the funding,
Yep.
we're not gonna be able to do the work.
Thank you, and we'll have another follow-on discussion some other time. I don't mean to. keep going. Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, we're gonna come, I'm not gonna push for, ahead on a vote for Article 5 currently, because I want us to go through the free cash dollars. So if you would keep going, Mr. Kaczynski?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next article I wanted to discuss was Article 6. This article was in the warrant at your last meeting, but it has been updated. The Select Board received a letter requesting they consider adding up to $40,000 for repairs to softball fields 1 and 2. I think you have some backup information that you should have received by email on this, or maybe in your physical packets. The Select Board considered that request and agreed to add $25,000 to that article to assist in doing repairs to softball fields 1 and 2. So, be happy to try to answer any questions you have in regards to that. I think there was also some specific information on that request that you should have received
Okay.
from the association.
As I serve on the Millis Youth Baseball Board, I'm going to recuse myself from any discussion or certainly voting on Article 6, but I will just stay put for not falling down, and Ms. Garzon will handle any discussion and vote on this. I'm happy to answer any questions on behalf of Millis Youth Baseball if there are any.
Mr. Chair. Or Ms. Curzon. Is there not a line item in the DPW or somewhere else in the budget that deals with maintenance for fields?
Not particularly these fields. I don't know if the director wants to discuss that briefly.
Right, so there is none of that nature to fix something of that line. We have a line item in the budget that pays for the irrigation system, that maintains the field out and back here, not the field, the AAA field over on the side. This field that in question that originally asked for the funding is, how can I say, there's supposedly an agreement. I've never seen the agreement, a 99-year, lease from the town that supposedly was given to Millis Youth Baseball. I've never seen that. The town of Millis, in the time that I've been here, and I think it even goes back well before that, has never given any money to maintain these fields. It was always maintained by the Millis Youth Baseball. And for that reason, they had full control of that field. In my belief, it's a town-owned property. The town should have control over it. But many conversations with different attorneys that have represented the town of Millis has said, let it go. If they're using their funds to pay for the maintenance of the fields, then they can control it. And that means, when I say control, there's no permitting structure to use that baseball field. Millis Youth Baseball rents that field out to different entities, and they keep the funds for the upkeep of the fields. I believe it's under our insurance, the structures that are on there. It was a quasi who owned it for many, many years, whether it was the school department or the town. But it was clearly defined in the past several years when the school was built that the land was turned over and deeded to the town of Millis, meaning the select board. It was under their jurisdiction. The fields that we're talking about outside, that I think that the Millis girls softball, they've always been under the jurisdiction of the DPW. When I say under the jurisdiction of the DPW, nothing's under the jurisdiction. We maintain cutting the grass. We pay for the irrigation system because it's in the line item. When there's money left over from the irrigation, because it always goes in deficit, we try to fertilize it. I mean, the baseball, the center field of this field here is the worst of any of the fields around here. And there's no money being appropriated to maintain them. And the reason for that is because Millis High School uses those fields for soccer and whatever they need it. And flag football uses them, the soccer field, and whatever revenue comes in from them, from renting of the fields, it goes into the recreation department's budget. So, I mean, whether that goes into the general fund, I don't know where it goes from there. So, short answer is no, there is not a line item for maintenance of, mainly this field here. I mean, the one that we're in question. And I think when we're gonna do this, and I hope we do it, because they do need to be repaired. Both applications need the funding to get it done. But I think it's finally gonna open up, and I think it's finally that the select board are gonna address, now that we're using town funds to maintain this baseball field, I believe they're gonna have to give up that ownership, and they're gonna have to go through a permitting process, just like the, girls softball league. When girls softball league, as though they still go through a permitting process, whether they pay anything because they maintain them, they still fill out a permit every single year to use that field. And I think that it's been always that question, and it was past presidents, past board members, let's don't talk about it, let's just leave it the way it is. But I think that with this action, it's gonna open that, and I believe for the Millis residents, because now they're paying for it, because we're using $20,000+ to maintain a field, that if you wanted to go down there and rent the field out, you'd have to pay for it, instead of using it freely. So, I'll stay if there's any more questions.
I just have another follow, the scope of the work, I saw there was a bid from a landscaper. The scope of the work is outside of what the DPW's capabilities are able to do as far as repairs to the field?
Yeah, that's correct. And the one that you did receive, it was the, last year, when the field was, maybe a year or two ago, when the baseball diamonds, softball field, and the Little League field was replaced and maintained, that was through CPC funding. Because we came to this board, we came to the select board, and just at that time, there was no funding for it. So the only place to go was to CPC, and the CPC gave funding. We went through the bid process, and I believe, Michael, this is the same company that did that work.
No, it's not the same company,
Okay.
but it is a company that provided a bid.
Okay. So that, what still has to happen, and the town administrator, said this Monday night, it's still under his control. He's the procurement officer of the town of Millis. So anything over $10,000, he has to bring it back to the select board for approval. So whoever's gonna get the bids, they gotta get the bids quickly, because if we're talking $45,000 worth of bidding, and the question is it under prevailing wage? We don't know. We'll have to check with town council on that. Hopefully it's not, because if you talk prevailing wage, you double the price. And $45,000 isn't gonna get them nothing.
Mr. Underhill, did you have a question?
Mr. McKay answered my questions with that. Thank you.
Is there enough time right now to do the work, or would that happen in the spring?
So I believe that there is time if we act quickly, but it's gonna have to be, every duck is gonna be in the row. I mean, we've gotta get the bids in, the select board have to approve it, so the town administrator can sign the contract. Because they're ultimately, it's over $10,000, and if you're gonna spend 10 on each, over $10,000 each field, they have to approve it. Me and him can't. We can work with them and do whatever we can do. They're not gonna be able to, so Millis Youth Baseball or Millis Girls Softball, they're not gonna be able to hire the vendor to come out and do it. It has to be done under the towns, and that means that, the bid that they both have, now they're gonna have to give insurance certificates no matter what. So they may look at that and say, well, wait a minute, my bid was just coming out to work for you to get the field done. It just can't happen.
If I could just add. So basically, there's two projects here under one article, similar in type of work. I think what we would look to do is work with the proponents of these projects. There's no reason that we can't go out right away and start getting 3 bids, which is what's required, so that if the town meeting were to approve this on the 10th, theoretically, if everything was lined up, they could go before the select board on November 14th to ask for them to sign a contract. But, all that work would have to get done in order to meet that timeline. And it's my understanding that if the bid was awarded around the middle of November, it still technically could be done before the season ran through into winter, so.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
With the water ban, as it is right now, if we do all this work to the fields, are we gonna be able to water the fields to make sure that by the time spring rolls around or summer, the same thing isn't gonna happen again?
Sure. So the best way to answer that, you just approved an article last week on our water permit. If the permit goes through the way that it's structured today, that's in our permit, we will be able to, from, May 1st to September 30th, the town will be able, anybody will be able to water 2 days a week. And as restrictions get, stiffer, then it will be lessened to 1 day a week, to handheld hoses, to nothing. During the early part, when there's no drought, there is exceptions for fields early on, like the months of May and June, because the levels are still up high enough that we don't have to follow under that, because they know, it's recreational spaces. Now, whether that will hold through the whole summer, until we get the permit, I can't say yes, I can't, we'll know about that in January, when we finally get our permit. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was gonna discuss it.
I mean, if all that fails, and we're not able, I think the only other options would be to look at having water trucked in to water the sites, which seems extreme. But it'd probably still be cheaper than replacing the fields again a year or two later. So again, just, that's a possibility, not an appealing one, but.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Madam Vice Chair, I can remember back in, our kids are all older now, but we used to water the fields after the games to kind of puff it up with handhelds. So I don't know if there's ability now to put back a hose with a handheld on it and walk around, but that was rather than buying water. Thank you.
Again, I think that this whole conversation brings up a much larger issue that's in front of us all, as Millis residents. This has been around and, Fields Committee's been established, disbanded, and everything else. This issue, along with others, needs to be addressed. I'm happy that people are, I always get excited when people have interest in this, but when it gets to the point where we had when we did a design study for all these fields, and we spent $300,000-$400,000 on it, and it was I've never seen anything get voted down as quick as that, if you all remember, at town meeting, when that got voted down. So we have the designs of what we're gonna put a football stadium in, a track in, baseball diamonds and everything else. It's sitting in my desk drawer. And it got voted down the same meeting that the computers got voted down. But let's keep talking about it. Let's act on it. I believe the town administrator gave his, interest that we're gonna address it hopefully by the May town meeting, and I hope we do.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. We want to go this to a vote? All right, I'll take a motion.
Madam Vice Chair?
Yes, Mr. Underhill.
I move that the Finance Committee vote to recommend approval of Article 6 to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $45,000 to pay for repairs to Majors Field, softball fields 1 and 2, or take any other action related thereto.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 6 in the amount of $45,000 for repairs to fields. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right.
Abstained.
And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 abstention, so the motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one last item that changed since your last meeting I'd like to address, and that is actually the motion for Article 17. There were some questions at your last meeting in regards to the wording of that. We did go back and work with bond counsel, and I think the wording here is much clearer. And addresses the concerns that the Finance Committee had at the last meeting, and cleans up that language. So it doesn't change the bottom line of what's being requested, it just cleans up the language.
Okay, would you give us just a couple of minutes to review this?
Yeah, I think that is much more understandable.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon?
I move that we recommend approval of Article 17, which would appropriate $250,000 to pay for the costs associated with the Asset Management Program, Phase 3. And that for this appropriation, $100,000 would be transferred from stormwater reserves, and the remaining $150,000 would, we would authorize the select board to borrow those funds.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to recommend approval of Article 17 for the town to appropriate $250,000 to pay costs associated with the Asset Management Program Phase 3, purchase and development of a sewer and stormwater asset management system, and for the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, $100,000 will be transferred from stormwater reserves, and the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow $150,000. Discussion. None heard? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and that's actually all the additional information I have for the committee this evening.
Okay.
I will certainly stick around for the rest of your meeting.
Would you
If there's any
please?
questions that come
Thank you.
up. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so, I'm gonna find my list from last week in terms of which articles have yet to be voted. We'll just try to go in order.
4, 7, 8,
The new 4,
yes.
new 4, right?
Well, no, that's the same 4, because we started
Okay,
at
yeah.
5.
7, 8,
21, 22, 24, and then 25, 26, 27.
25, 26, 27. Okay, and do we want to go over this with Ms. Johnston before we?
I would like to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Johnston, would you mind coming to the table? We're going to discuss, we have a couple of different data products, spreadsheets really, for accounting of free cash and borrowing associated with each of the articles, essentially to make sure that everything reconciles, and it's just another way to make sure that there's clarity and understanding for us and for everybody else. So I'm going to let Jody lead this, and you guys can go through your numbers. We do have these numbers with us via handout, both the table that Deirdre assembles and then Jody's spreadsheet.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Johnston. It's always helpful that you provide these numbers for us. I am able to tie out with kind of your numbers for what is anticipated for use of free cash for this town meeting. So it's the part of the, I want to understand the must funds for the spring. So I'm glad that we have school committee members here, because one of my big questions is, do we have any idea of the special ed shortfall that we may be facing in the spring? So we don't know.
No. We're having some meetings in November. We don't have enough to figure that out.
Okay. So.
Mr. Catalano, would you mind just coming up to Mike? Thank you.
Steve Catalano, Chair of the School Committee. Do you want me to repeat what I said?
Yes, please.
At this point, we don't have numbers for what out-of-district tuitions would be. Just at last meeting, we found out new people were moving into the district, so the number's in flux, but we have a plan to have a meeting in November to start get to preliminary numbers, knowing that the budget season's coming ahead of a tri-board meeting. We don't want to be dumping something on you in March, but we just don't have numbers at this point.
Okay.
I recollect that the discussion was that nobody declared this or published anything, but this certainly were conversations that last year, you know, in the spring, early spring, late winter, that when we were knowledgeable of a shortfall, that we anticipated that there very well could be another shortfall for the 2024 budget cycle for
Absolutely.
the following year.
Absolutely.
Has anything changed that you know of?
No. In fact, we are having a conversation about how we got to budget last year and identifying so we are starting the conversation at Tuesday's meeting, and right there was the 360,000, which this committee was very helpful in meeting that shortfall. We don't think that shortfall is going away. I just don't know if it goes down a little or if it goes up.
So it's safe to say we're not starting at zero, we're starting at a negative number. There is still
Absolutely.
the likelihood of a shortfall.
And at the end of many fiscal years, we've been able to, with some savings, pay in advance, tuition in advance. We were not able to do that, obviously, last year, and we just don't envision us being able to do that in this year's budget as presently constituted. So even if we could get ahead with end-of-year savings, we just don't see that being a possibility this year.
Okay.
So we are not at zero.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Andrea?
I would ask Mr. Catalano, have we received any indication from the state on circuit breaker funding, as we discussed at our spring meetings?
We have not received a preliminary number yet. That starts to come in, and the appropriate answer is, let me look into that. I know we don't have a number right now. Let me find out what the timeline is and when we could anticipate a number for you.
Thank you.
When do you think you could do that?
I will ask the question tomorrow.
When do
I
you
will have
think you'll get an answer?
That I don't know.
I don't know.
That I don't know. I will ask the question maybe even tonight, depending on how long the meeting goes. And we can have a discussion on Tuesday, but we will absolutely, we started this process today or last meeting, and then we're following up on Tuesday.
The reason
Not specifically just about SPED, but in general.
The reason I ask is because I anticipate that when considering free cash spending, that this committee would consider that in whether or not it supports $500,000 worth of roads and some, albeit smaller items, but still important items that are identified in Article 4. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think we're all thinking along
When
the
is
same lines.
do you have another meeting next Wednesday?
We'll have a pre-town meeting, and then we'll have another meeting right before town meeting. So we can recommend at town meeting. We don't like to do that, but we could if we had to.
I will effort to get you a number, a projected number. My only concern is that number, we give a projected number. Obviously, if it goes down, that's a good situation.
I understand.
The problem is if we say it's 400,000 or 500,000, and then we have move-ins now, well, why can't you give us, firm numbers? Part of it is we don't know how the education occurs during the year. Some people transition out, some people transition in. I'm not saying
understand.
anything that you don't already know. My promise to you is I'm gonna effort to try to get you a number and start to have a conversation about what does a realistic number with buffers look like? So you can have some answers in the next week.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, all of this is to, try to make sure that we keep a buffer for Springtown meeting and don't spend all of our free cash right now. So the other question that I have is, are there any outstanding contract ratifications that would affect what we would need to use for free cash in the spring?
Right now, they are still in negotiations with 3 outstanding unions. We have money set aside for this particular year that should cover those union negotiations. I'm not privy to the negotiations, so the town administrator could probably give you a little more color on that. But for right now, I wouldn't anticipate, unless contracts are not signed before the start of the new budget year, that we would have to add in a buffer, because
Okay.
we can only budget on the numbers that we currently have. We can't budget on anticipated.
Right, okay, so that is helpful. And I also ran the numbers on the stabilization fund, so if we put 300,000 in now, it looks like that has the potential to carry us through 2024?
It more than likely will. The only item that would be of concern now is that all investments haven't been on a real winning streak. So depending on how our investments do, hopefully everything will start to rebound a little bit, but we have seen not such great losses.
So does that account for the drop in the stabilization fund
Yes.
balance? Okay,
Yes.
that was another question that I had
Right.
on that, which makes sense, yeah. I try not to look at my 401K. Okay, so as we look at the free cash that we have allocated, just if we were to approve kind of all of the articles that would hit free cash,
Right.
looks like we have totaled that up at the bottom of our article list. So that would be a little over 1.5 million that would come out of free cash. And that would,
You also need to take into consideration the marijuana impact funds.
right, which would, about 229,000 would come
Yes.
out of those. So remaining for spring would be about 500,000 in kind of our regular free cash pool, and about 660,000 in the marijuana funds.
I have it projected to be, we would spend the full 271,000 remaining in the marijuana funds for this year, in the spring.
Okay.
And so I only have for unpaid bills at this point. All other articles were moved into budgets last year, all of the other MUS funds.
So the school bus lease, the
Right.
computer leases, the Medicaid billing?
Right.
Okay,
So those are all in the operating budget. So
Okay.
there's no more MUS funds for those. So then what I'm looking at at the fall town meeting, if everything passes as suggested, we would have a balance of $1,163,680.71. And of that, the 271,000 would be for marijuana spending in the spring. And then we'd have 887,000 left available for us to spend in the Springtown meeting.
I agree with your math, except I don't follow the marijuana funds, and,
Well, the marijuana funds, the total amount available at the November town meeting that we received would be $500,599. So we're spending 229,000 of that at spring,
okay.
and the remainder of the 271 would be we're spending that in the fall, 229, and the remainder would be in the spring.
Okay, I had a different amount for the marijuana fund, so I moved it over to the other column.
Okay.
So then that puts us close to 900,000 with remaining free cash for the spring. Okay. So I think that's,
And that's with the 500,000 in roads
Yes.
taken out for the fall.
okay. That makes me a lot more comfortable than, looking ahead and thinking that we're going to be at a negative 30,000 come, spring,
Right.
after spring. Yeah.
Does,
Ms. Ms. Boyardi.
when the chair of the school committee was referring to the special ed money, is any of that part of this free cash?
No.
accommodate? No.
No, Last year, this committee, as well as the select board, as well as the town, the voters, chose to allocate $360,000 in the neighborhood, if I remember right, out of free cash into the operating budget for FY '23 to account for that shortfall. That potential is there for next school budget year as well.
Okay,
And
thank
that's
you.
the heart of the discussion. If we had to, could we?
Could we? And we could.
And the answer is yes,
We could.
We could.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Andro?
Just a point for my clarification, that $887,000 number that we came up with, does that include us putting $300,000 in the stabilization fund in the fall town meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So many questions.
All right, that is super helpful, to understand kind of our free cash position is essential as we look to
Right.
vote on these articles.
Okay. I am going to bring us back to Article 4, unless there are other questions. I mean, if there are other dollars and cents questions down to the penny, now's the time. And I don't say that in light of what you just did, because it's essential and it's, we have to do that. Are there any other questions for people that don't have Excel open in front of them that can't necessarily follow?
I can't pivot table with my pen.
Correct, correct. Okay, I'll take a motion on Article 4.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon?
I move that we recommend approval of Article 4, which would transfer from free cash the sum of $92,226.75 and transfer from water enterprise reserves the sum of $22,226.75 and transfer from sewer enterprise reserves the sum of $22,226.75. And likewise, transfer from stormwater enterprise reserves the sum of $22,226.75 for a sum total of $158,907 to fund the following capital items. For the town buildings, and VMB, a chiller coil replacement for $45,000. For town buildings, VMB and library keyless entry system for $25,000. For the DPW, an air compressor for $26,967. And for the DPW Chevy Silverado with plow for $61,940.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to approve Article 4 as just stated and as included in our meeting material, our packet here for Article 4. Any discussion? None heard? All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Stedman.
sorry,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair?
Stedman. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm still confused on the DPW Chevy Silverado. At the last meeting, I heard that is for a dump truck. This does not say dump truck. And we did approve a Silverado in the spring. So I would like to hear whether we're buying a dump truck or another Silverado.
I would just tell you that I've never heard this referred to as a dump truck, and I'm on the capital planning committee. It was presented to us this way. But, Mr. McKay,
That's what was said
You're-
at the last meeting.
you are the requester, so
2 seconds. So it is a Chevy Silverado pickup truck, extended cab. It's a four-door pickup truck, and it will have a plow. I think somebody asked, it does not have a sander. It's
Sanding
not
bed.
big enough. It's not big enough to have a sander. This is replacing a 2008 Ford Explorer, and it will be mainly used by the facilities manager on the day-to-day operations. The reason why we pushed to get this pickup truck now is because it's available. All our vehicles, most, other than the one vehicle I have is a Ford, everything is the smaller vehicles from pickups to small one-ton dumps. They're all Chevy, so it's easy to maintenance and buy parts for them. This vehicle did come available to us. If most of the Chevy is gonna change their whole line of vehicles, of how we bid on them. They're gonna go from, vinyl seats and vinyl floors to carpeted seats, backup cameras that will back the truck up and everything else, and mainly they're changing the product line to electric vehicles.
Mr. McKay, can I stop you there?
But
Have we answered the question? Mr. Stebbins?
Yes, I think it would clarify this if it was a dump truck, because the last time we approved $5,000 less, and it was the same description, so.
It's
just-
not a dump truck.
I understand it as a
and
dump
it's-
truck and support it as a dump truck.
No, it's not.
It
I
is
just
not
think
a
it would
dump truck.
clarify things at the town meeting.
It is not a dump truck. It has never been a dump truck. It is a pickup truck, and it is not the same dollar
Or pickup
figure.
truck then.
Yes, sir.
And the increase of $5,000 just because of the increase, it's a new model year, newer.
All
than
set?
last year's.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes unanimously. Article 7.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Underhill.
I move that the Finance Committee recommend approval for appropriating $1,300,000 for the purpose of paying costs conducting a feasibility study of the renovation, addition, or replacement of the Millis Middle High School.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to recommend approval of Article 7 by appropriating $1,300,000 for the purpose of paying costs of conducting a feasibility study of the renovation, addition, or replacement of the Millis Middle High School located at 245 Plain Street. Discussion. Ms. Reyes, if you would lead us off, please.
Sure. I believe that this article, I would, vote for approval of this article, just because I believe that the school, as was told to us by the school committee last week, is in need of about $8 million of repairs as it is right now with systems that may or may not last until a renovation is done on the school. And they have to be done anyway, and they are in need of a lot more space and services. I did have actually a question on this with, we're having issues with SPED as they are right now. Is that also due to lack of space to have the SPED classes in it? I was just wondering if this renovation would also maybe address that problem.
Good evening, Denise Gibbons, School Committee, 8 Paddock Lane. It would. So
Okay.
some of the areas that are being used for SPED today are sort of general areas like the library. So part of this would certainly look at that. So we would make sure that we accommodated it in the same way that we did in the Clyde Brown School. So there was definitely space that was added to, created within that facility to address SPED. So it would definitely be part of the feasibility study and one of the big things that they would look at.
Does this potentially solve some of the problem in the future for SPED going forward?
Yes, they would, so the process that the MSBA goes through is a full educational review. Part of that is taking a look at what the SPED needs are currently in the district, so in that building, and they would make sure that there'd be appropriate space for that, plus whatever else that they would allow us to include. So they have guidelines for how much space we can have, both on the low end and the high end. And SPED falls into that category. So they do it by grade, and they also do it by SPED.
Okay, great, thank you. Sure.
I'd like to ask a follow-up that's along those lines. I believe anecdotally that when Clyde Brown came on, the new Clyde Brown came online, it allowed the district to offer services for those students that would otherwise have been placed. And there is a dollar figure attached with that. I can't remember what it is, but I know it's, we were actually just talking about it. It's $360,000 just last year. But more specific, I'm curious if you have any data that says after Clyde Brown went through new construction and updating, what did it save in terms of, and again, I understand it varies from year to year. Is there any data?
I'd have to check with the business manager because we have not discussed specific savings as a result of building the Clyde Brown School. There's been a review overall of SPED, and there was some big programs that the district has put into place, but they were at the high school and extension period. So that actually was a big savings, keeping individuals in district. I don't know, but we'll ask the business manager and come
Thank
back
you.
with an answer. Sure.
Further discussion, please.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Andre.
I'd just like to speak in favor of this article. I think our school committee did a fantastic job getting this grant from the state. And, you know, this is work that we're going to have to do to the school one way or the other. And getting additional funding for up to 50% of the cost is in the best interest of this town.
Approved costs.
Mr. Gatto.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, the idea that the funding would go away, or we have to reapply, and it could take a number of years past the useful life of some of the systems, makes it also worthwhile.
Okay, others? I'm just going to pile on real quick. Go ahead, Scott.
I'll be quick, thank you. I heard the school presentation on Monday night at the select board meeting. I think it was great. If anyone's been in that school and been in the new Clyde Brown, you can see that the school is aged and stuff. So I think from a security standpoint, having the building updated, whether it's a new facility or an older facility, I think is important, but I think it's an investment that is desperately needed, and I think long-term will save the town money. I'm sure the new Clyde Brown, the new building has saved them already money, and I'm sure that with the renovation of the high school will do the same, so thank you.
I've got a few comments, and I really just want to remind us that this is a vote for a feasibility study. There are definitely, absolutely future votes that if this passes, that although this embarks us on a path for potential for MSBA funding, that there are other votes that will follow this in terms of whether a new school, or, excuse me, a renovation will be done, because nobody's talking about a new school. There have been figures talked about in our committee proceedings that there's a $30 to $70 million ticket, you know, coming, and I don't think that's the case. We've been told that that's not the case. I don't know what the number is, but it's not $30 to $70 million that this would yield. This is for a renovation, possibly an addition, and it's for mechanical, electrical, and roofing systems, along with other upgrades to that the programming dictates. And we're going to hear that again tonight when we talk about the senior center. But one of the points that I made the other night at the select board meeting was that the costs, I anticipate that the costs will go up somewhat in the sense, because they're talking about a renovation. And during a renovation, costs invariably go up because you don't know about existing conditions. You never know what you don't know. This is not a knockdown and start from new and estimate everything for a new building. You know, you estimate the demolition, and then you estimate maybe the cleanup and construction of a new building. Well, there could be other things that come up. This $1.3 million is designed to find that out. And if there are architectural needs that come up, whether they be new windows or whether they need new electrical for other systems, that this electrical upgrade that's included in this statement of work is really just to facilitate the HVAC system, as far as I know. So there could be other costs that come from this, but I'm encouraged by the fact that Millis has been successful. The last time we went through MSBA and went through this process to build the new Clyde Brown, where the project came in on time and under budget. And that doesn't happen all the time. It's nothing to be taken for granted. And so that restores a little bit of my faith, or at least it gives me some confidence that this is the right thing to do. And then the last point I'll say is that the money that MSBA returns to us, and that's what they're doing, is they're returning our tax dollars. They're not spending them in another community, which they will someday. This was not great timing. I think everybody will agree that nobody, I think, wanted for the town to have two very important warrant issues before us, the senior center and the school. For me, they're both important, and I loathe to have to choose between them, and I don't know that I have to. But the timing couldn't be worse, I think, for this. I am going to support it with my vote, but there's still a long way to go, and anybody that participates in this going forward needs to have cost control on their mind the same way that they did for Clyde Brown. So, any further discussion? Okay, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? That was a yay or a nay, John? I'm sorry. I'm just making
Yay.
sure. Thank you. Just making sure. Okay. Motion passes 9-0. Article 8, the new senior community center. Would you? Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Lohr.
I recommend that we move the town to appropriate $16 million to pay costs of design, constructing, furnishing, and equipping a new senior center, including the payment of all other costs and incidental related thereto. And that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said amount under the pursuant of GLC 44.
I second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to approve Article 16, the appropriation of $16 million to pay costs of designing, constructing, furnishing, and equipping a new senior center. Discussion. Mr. Lohr.
Mr. Chair, the PBC and the COA did a phenomenal job presenting this a couple of FinCom meetings ago. They had Abacus Architects who did the study of what it would cost to be in the current location, as well as other options that would be on Cassidy Field. They presented 3 different options, and they went through the pros and cons of each option. They did their due diligence. It makes sense to look at the different options that they've done. The senior center has been around since about 1999. The aging population is growing, and I think it would be best to support this article.
Ms. Boyardi.
Oops. I want to applaud you for the presentation of getting you out of the basement. It was excellent. Everything that you have presented to this committee has been so tastefully and I guess the word would be eloquently done. And it is about time that the senior population be respected. They were the population who supported the schools. It's time that, and I think they still support the schools, but I just think it's really time. And yes, I am a senior, but it really has nothing to do with that. It's the fact that living in this town, I've been here 40 years, 40 plus years. And I have been involved in so many different aspects of this town and helping out. And as a young person with children, and now as an older person, and then also supported the seniors, I just think it's time to give them something back. And you did a great job.
Others that want to speak?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Under.
I want to start by saying I do believe this is necessary and the seniors do deserve this. I have 2 concerns that one was not addressed, was that when the line item was given for the budget for this project, we were accounted for $11 million, approximately. I asked for the $4 million to be broken out and given specific costs, and I did not receive that. So I think that needs to be addressed. Secondly, the upgrade to the sewer station that needs to be done to this, that's going to be absorbed by the water and sewer ratepayers. I would rather have seen this being absorbed by the project. I would have rather they asked for $17 million and have it be the total cost. I do support this, but I do have some questions on those two items that I hope could be addressed by someone in the audience, because I did ask for that 2 weeks ago, and I did not receive any information.
Can you explain that first item for me, please?
Sure,
I'm
so when
confused.
Mr. Stedman went through and he had from the website the line item for all the prices.
Yes.
Everything was accounted for in line item up to $11,400,000. Then there were some other funds not identified, just, they were identified but not given specific price points. I don't have it right in front of me, but there was about $4 million that was not assigned a specific line item. Those were not all contingencies. If there's $4 million in a $16 million project in contingency, we have a problem. So I did ask from the Permanent Building Committee to have it broken up further and have the contingencies identified, and I did not receive that information. I do support this, but we need that information to bring to the townspeople at the town meeting, or this is going to be a problem.
Okay, any more discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Garzon?
I mean, I would like to echo, I think the presentations have been very well done. I know a lot of work has gone into this. I am concerned about the cost. I'm concerned about the cost to taxpayers. I'm concerned about the increase in costs that are going to go into that budget line item. Ms. Johnston very graciously gave us some rough projections of our growth numbers. And when I run those growth numbers against the added cost that this project would create for the town of Millis, I mean, the only result that it comes to is an increase in our taxes. And I don't know, I can't speak for everyone else, but when the Clyde Brown debt hit our tax bill, that was a lot to absorb in 1 year. And this is less, but, you know, we have about $20 million, about $21 million from Clyde Brown that hit our tax bill. This is gonna be 16 because we don't have reimbursements coming. This is all on us to pay. And while it's not a question of whether the seniors deserve something, they absolutely do. It's a question of whether we can do this or whether we can do this right now. You know, it really gives me pause. I like the idea of the project. I just have a really hard time supporting it right now just because of the extra increase in taxes that is gonna hit our seniors too. And every senior that I've spoken to says we need to do something about our high taxes in Millis, that it's a high burden for our seniors that live here, it's a high burden for our families, and I feel really reluctant to add this when I know it's gonna make it even worse.
Thank you. Mr. Stedman? Mr. Stedman?
Yes. I think there are three questions here. The first one is, do we need a senior center? And I'm convinced that the answer to that is yes. The COA provides important services. They serve an important segment of the population. They've done a great job despite all kinds of handicaps. And I really think they've made a solid and compelling case for this. So the answer to me on that question is yes. The second question is, can we afford it? It's my understanding that we have enough debt capacity to do this without having an adverse effect. So to me, it's up to the citizens of the town whether or not this is a priority and they want to spend the money on it. Taxes are a problem and they make our housing less affordable. Any dollar you spend in taxes is a dollar less that you can spend in mortgage. So that ultimately then affects housing prices. That brings me to the third question, which is the Cassidy Farm the appropriate place? This question was clearly beyond the scope of the COA. And when presented with the two options of VMB or Cassidy, clearly, I think anybody in the right mind would go with Cassidy. It's got a lot of advantages there, but the question that has not been answered, is that the best use of the Cassidy Farm? That portion that is unrestricted, I think we have to, once the senior center is built or approved, that property is tied up for at least 30 years. I mean, it's a permanent decision. So I think we need to turn that stone. Are we better off having a developer look at that project? We're short on housing. We're short on market rate housing. We're short on affordable housing. Is that a better use of this property? And so it would bring in money to the town from selling the property tax from the use. The developer could be required to pay for a new lift station. And anything there, in my opinion, would precipitate the need for a traffic light at the intersection of Island and Exchange, which is one of the more dangerous intersections in our town. So I think that third question, which was beyond the scope of the COA, but I think is very much a must for the Finance Committee to ask, needs to be asked before we make a permanent decision. And therefore, I can't support it at this time.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Ms. McGinnis?
A member of the Council on Aging mentioned that I was an abutter, and I went to the State Ethics Commission and was instructed pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 268, Section 19, that I get an opinion from the Finance Committee's appointing authority. He or she is the one that determines whether we are allowed to hear things. The moderator determined that I am permitted to sit and vote on this article. Mr. Moderator determined that my integrity will not be undermined because I am an abutter. And this is the form that he filled out. For several years, I'm talking about a hot kitchen that's going to be there for 150 people, Mr. Chair. For several years, the high school cafeteria hosted a senior citizen dinner provided by the Millis Lions. Why cannot we build on that partnership of large hot meal events in honor of the senior citizens at the school rather than burdening them with several $1 million for a hot meal? And then I did receive a text from a member of the Millis Lions Club regarding if it would continue because it stopped during COVID. And I quote, "Attendance was significantly declining year after year, and with the amount of Lions and students it took to pull it off, it became increasingly less impactful." So they're not having one this year. And to follow up on Mr. Underhill about the sewer, as a sewer ratepayer, I am opposed to the additional financial burden to be imposed on us sewer ratepayers because it has been decided that the sewer ratepayers and not the override funds will bear the cost, if needed, to replace the Timberline pumping station to accommodate additional sewer discharge because the existing pumping station conceivably cannot handle the increased load. It has been stated that this existing pump station is on the capital plan to be replaced anyway, but as the DPW director testified, the existing pump is working fine with scheduled maintenance by our competent sewer department. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mr. McKay also stated that replacement costs could be $370,000 up to $1 million. So not only do sewer ratepayers pay for the building override, but we must also pay for the sewer upgrade. Another charge to sewer ratepayers. And next, proposed commercial development of the senior center. On at least 2 occasions, I have heard at meetings, one at a Council on Aging meeting, that a way to absorb impact of the cost would be to consider professionals renting out space, especially medical services. Mentioned was physical therapy, doctors, and others in the medical field. As Mr. Stedman mentioned, this area is zoned residential, and to allow commercial use would require a full town meeting vote of 2/3 vote. This is a residential area. Personally, I will not support any senior center, no matter where located, that will contemplate a commercial use within the senior center. We do not need a commercial plaza at Cassidy Field. Thank you very much.
Okay. Joyce?
Just one last thing. I think that this should go to the town as a vote. It may pass, it may not, but I think that it should be given the opportunity, just as the schools are being given the opportunity. I just think it's an important, I personally just think that the
Let's-
townspeople should be
It's
able
on the
to-
warrant. We're not voting to dismiss it.
Okay,
We don't have that authority either way. We could recommend dismissal, we are not.
okay.
So it will be voted on. One moment, if I may. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry, thank you. Paul Simpson, 52 Island Road. So raised some of the issues, Mr. Underhill, the sewer, and Mrs. McGinnis, and a couple of other things just to think about, and I had one question on the financials. This would also require annual maintenance costs above and beyond the construction, and I don't know what the estimates are. I think at one point I saw 150 to 300,000. So that would either require another override for
No.
that?
No, it would
Or
not.
what, okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
No, go
but it
ahead.
would not require an override. It would require additional operating budget capacity, which typically the town gets through its new growth. So when new properties are built and new taxpayers and new revenue comes to the town, that is allocated between the different needs of the town. There is no conceivable way, and Ms. Johnston can comment on this, that the operating budget for a new senior center would require an override. I don't know how that would even be possible.
We work within the amount of budget we have.
Correct.
So that's how the operating budget is developed.
Okay, so I thought at one point that an override had been discussed, but that was months ago as a possibility, so.
Override is, typically it's when the town chooses to spend beyond its regular borrowing capacity, which is, there's a short-term bonding and short-term lending, and Ms. Johnson can use all the right words. The town has, it's analogous to a credit card. We can borrow up to a certain point, and it's within our operating budget. If we spend more than that, or if we choose to borrow more than that, then it requires, once it goes over 2.5% of what the growth number is, then the town has to vote on an override, and that is a ballot measure. Everybody has to, it has to go, it will go on the ballot. Anybody that chooses to vote would vote on it. But for something like operations and maintenance, running of a larger senior center would be more personnel, even in addition to the operation and maintenance of the building, that likely would be more personnel needed to do the programming and et cetera. That budget will go up. Likely, it would be within the capacity of the new growth numbers at the time, say it's, 3-4 years from now, that would be funded. The town operates a balanced budget. We don't operate in deficit. So there is no conceivable way that I can think of that the operating budget of the senior center, this senior center or a new senior center, would require an override.
Thanks for clarifying, but there would have to be some increase in costs for maintenance.
Yes.
Okay. My second question has to do with the financial assumptions for the borrowing, and I think this came up a couple of weeks ago. So the assumed rate right now, I believe, unless it's changed, is 4.25%. And a couple of weeks ago, even the Council on Aging raised this as an issue, that the Fed has raised rates multiple times since the spring, probably another big increase when they meet the next time. It's really unprecedented as far as these rate increases. So what is the rate that would be associated with that bond issuance?
I'm going to defer to Ms. Johnston.
The current rate that we were given by our financial advisors was 5.75.
So how does that affect the funding costs?
It would be when the numbers were given out last week, I think it was $302 per person for the $16 million.
Per
That's what it
household,
would
per
be,
median,
household.
median.
Right.
More than that.
That's what it was. So the numbers haven't changed from when it was discussed.
Still 16 million.
Right.
Okay.
It's still 16 million.
Right. Right. Thanks for clarifying.
You're welcome, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Rosenfeld?
Good evening, Ellen Rosenfeld, member of the Select Board. Select Board hasn't taken a position yet. We're doing that on the 7th, I believe. But this is why I'm in support. First of all, the COA is here. They're looking for your support to bring this to a vote at town meeting. It's important to get your support. I reviewed the last 10 years of Finance Committee support on various initiatives in this town. And you, not this particular board, but the Finance Committee has supported the police, fire, the library, Clyde Brown, DPW. Most of those were unanimous votes. I am getting to that age where I forget paperwork. I have the paperwork in my office, I have the dates, I have the votes, I have everything. Trust me. We're hopeful to get your support to bring it to the town. Now, the town can do with it what they want. If they feel as if they have all the same numbers you do, if they feel as if it's a tax burden, then they'll vote it down. But it is important to have your support for the seniors. It's important that you don't second-guess this process. It's important that you don't kick this can down the road and say this timing isn't good. One of the reasons the timing isn't good, and sorry to the schools, because I support that, and so do the seniors, but they jumped it. They jumped it. This was our window. I was told this was our window in the spring when I was campaigning, and I met with Bob Mulaney at the school. He said, Ellen, nope, they're never going to pick us, Ellen, they're never going to pick us. Last time it took 7 years, they're never going to pick us. Well, Christmas miracle, they picked them. And they're bumping up against us now, and that makes it look like you have a choice. And, you know, I say we, the seniors, they've been kicked down the road forever, from St. Thomas to the basement. That basement's not getting any better. That missing money is a 30% contingency, which I questioned myself. I said, Wayne, who does a 30%? It's worth 11 million, and you're bringing it to 16. And he said he wanted to make sure that we wouldn't have to go to the town again, because apparently in the past, projects have under-budgeted, and they've had to come back and beg for more. Can I have some more, please? He didn't want to do that. And that's that money. So I'm as passionate as you are, and this board that's getting tired and tireder. They just want your support to give us this much more, maybe, this much more to the townspeople. And then what happens, happens. And if we have to come back, we'll come back. We're not going away. I can guarantee you that. And if we have to come back, we'll come back. But it's important. It's important for your support. If you have any questions.
Thank you. No, actually, you can in a minute, but I put myself last for a reason, and not necessarily last at the end of the line. Just wait 1 second, because I'm probably going to would like you to respond what I'm about to say. I do have some questions. I am absolutely in favor of a new senior center. I am not in favor of this senior center. And I felt like I've communicated that, you know, at most of the opportunities that I've had, in the sense where I just don't understand the three options that were presented to the Council on Aging. It's like option 1A, 1B, and 1C. There's just not that much difference between the three options. So I did some poking. I did an unscientific survey on my own today. I found that, you know, you're not going to find another town that is 6 months behind us or a year behind us, so that it's absolutely relevant, that has the same population and the same growth projected and the same, they're doing renovation or they're doing new construction. You're just not going to find that, at least not a lot of them. So here's what I found. Sturbridge, $11.4 million renovation expansion. They had a little bit of cost growth, same factors. Their senior population is growing. They're presently at the time when they started their construction, they were at about 7,600 square feet. They want to go up to 12,500. They ended up somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million. You can do the math there. It's about $900 per square foot. And this is where I'm going with this, the dollars per square foot. Mansfield, $11 million renovation. Incidentally, they have a $4 million state grant from the Office of Elder Affairs, which I hope that that's something that we're eligible for. I don't know. I know that we got a grant for our study, but there seems to be lots of grants out there. A larger senior population. I don't know their square footage, so I don't know their cost. North Andover, 7,800 square feet, going to 17,000 square feet, $8 million new construction for 13,500 square feet-ish. 4,000 personnel, or 4,000 residents for senior population for a cost of almost $600 a square foot. Upton, a combined library senior center, 15,000 square feet for $12 million. New construction, it's about $800 a square foot. Sterling, similar, a little bit obviously smaller out there in western Massachusetts, $300 a square foot. West Boylston, 10,000 square feet of new construction for $5.7, $570 per square foot. Pembroke, which is particularly, I would say, relevant, not necessarily because of location, but they're doing a combined community center and council on aging currently. They're literally voting on it like now. I saw one article that said they were supposed to vote on it on Tuesday. I didn't see the results of that, so I think it may have gotten moved. Let's see, $22 million. Well, $22 million was for 41,000 square feet. Result was about $550 per square foot. And then here's where perhaps you can help me. I believe we are looking at 15,000 square feet for a cost of $16 million. That's over $1,000 per square foot. It's an outlier. And honestly, I do support this. I think we can do so much better for our seniors than operating out of this basement. I just don't think that the options that was presented did a good job of coming up with affordable options. And I'm sorry, 30%, it's not 30%, it's $5 million. That's practically 50%. I don't know if that's what's sinking this for me. I'm prepared to vote on it. And because we've asked these questions, we've raised the concern about the options, and nothing's gonna change those options. The petitioned articles have merit. They don't have merit in the sense that I'm gonna support them. I do not support the petitioned articles as they stand right now. They lack the due diligence that has been done that needs to continue to be done. I support a new senior center. I feel like we can do better, but we have to do better on the price tag as well for seniors, for every resident. And so I'm not going to support this. And I invite you to add your comments, ma'am. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Derwin. I live in Middlesex Street, and I'm a member of the Council on Aging Board. I'm wondering if it's the contingencies that's holding you up. Because one of the ones you said was about the same square footage for $11 million. I think it was Sturbridge. And if you took out our contingency, we're right in line with that. So I think it's possible that the facts and the numbers that you're reading in the square footage isn't being as conservative as the Permanent Building Committee was, much to what Alan said, as to make sure that we don't have to come back. And from all the numbers you read, I really think if you take our contingency out, everything there was pretty much in line with what you said. But the other point I wanted to make is you mentioned the petition articles, and I think it is very much in line in that there are 3 petitions for a lot of money with no plan behind them. And the board is concerned that they're going to be looked at as a viable alternative to what is being presented. And I just want to emphasize that what we presented was done with great rigor and process. And it began 3 years ago, and it began with collecting what are the programming needs of a senior center for a population of our size that is continuing to grow. So what is needed to do that? And what are the shortcomings of our current situation? We brought in experts, we toured around, and we came up with what is perceived to be a forward-looking view of what Millis needs. And there was a great deal of rigor put into that, which contrasts to 3 petitions. That's a lot of money with no plan behind it, no input into what programming needs are needed by a senior center, which services are provided, which well-being programs. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand the Council on Aging Board took a vote and unanimously concluded that those petition articles do not suffice, simply because there's nothing there that we can go with. You can put $3.5 million downstairs, and we don't know what that gets us. The other thing is that, it's predicated on the railroad station being done, moving some groups out of here to make some space here, which would then be disjointed to our current space. So there's a knock-on effect there in the order in which things have to happen. So it doesn't address our problem. And I do think that hope you would reconsider and say, if we took out the contingency, and assuming that the Permanent Building Committee was very conservative, and you see that the numbers that we presented pretty much do line up with all those other towns that you said, and the contingency hopefully is never needed, and that we would then be in line.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Andre?
I'd like to clear up the contingency question, because I asked 2 weeks ago for the contingency to be clearly defined from the Permanent Building Committee, and it was not.
That's fair, we need to get that.
You needed it weeks ago. And 40% contingency, I manage projects of this size and scope every day. 5 to 10% contingency is average for a project. A $4 million contingency should be for a $40 million project. It's outsized, and if I had a project manager come to me at my job and give me this, I'd ask for a new project manager. This is wrong.
Ms. Kao?
Hi, Patty Kao. I wish I could answer your contingency question, but I think I'd have to leave that up to Permanent Building Committee. I can't answer your question, Pete, about why the options were so similar. We didn't just say, okay, let's have 15,000 square feet here, 13,000. We
Yeah.
built it around programming.
Please understand, I absolutely understand that, and
Okay.
I don't mean to cut you off,
That's
but I absolutely understand where you got 15,000 square feet. In fact, I've read your study. I read several others today who went through the same process, that laid out their programming, provided conceptual plans for their programming, whether it be function rooms, whether it be segregated or private office space, for kitchens, for dispatch, for reception, all of those things. Most of those studies that I read today included those, and I understand that they are in this one as well. So I have zero concern with 15,000. It's the numerator that I have the problem with. 15, 16, and $21 million is way out of whack. You can do a little bit of research on what standard building construction, just look for municipal construction, and whether it be senior centers, community centers, schools, like construction, the standard cost, the range of costs in this area is anywhere from, say, $500 to $700 per square foot, including contingency. And most of these studies had the soft costs included in their cost estimates, or what they're bringing to ballots. Again, Pembroke is bringing theirs to ballot at the exact same time that we are. And that's where their costs are. They're about $600 per square foot. And I want to be compelled by the advocacy that I'm hearing. I absolutely think the seniors need to move out of this basement. Ms. Rosenfeld sent me the video today. I watched the video. You did a fantastic job, and it's not about that. It's about the fact that this cost estimate is an extreme outlier. And on the Finance Committee, my duty is to the citizens, the voters, for us as a committee to make a recommendation. This is gonna go to ballot. People can listen to us or not. I could be in the minority on this, I don't know. I'm not cajoling anybody, I'm just trying to give the reason. It means something to me that I'm recommending disapproval of something that I think the seniors need. I don't take that lightly, and that's why I'm trying to be very clear on why I'm voting the way that I'm going to vote. It's because of the cost. And if the cost can get, in line between now and town meeting, perhaps we can reconsider. But as it stands right now, my vote is no.
All right, thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
I don't want to throw any blame anywhere, but what the heck? $35,000 grant paid for our feasibility study. $35,000. So when they come back to you for a feasibility study more in line with that feasibility study, maybe we will get better numbers.
Interesting that you say that, because I was on the Mansfield website today, and their website had a list of all of the grants that the Department of Elder Affairs gave to Council on Agings and senior centers. And I'm pretty sure ours was the lowest for the most amount of work. There were people looking for improvements to their heating system that got feasibility or engineering design studies for much more dollar figures than we got. And I'm pretty sure it's Mansfield, got a $4 million grant for construction of their senior center. Apparently there are dollars out there. I don't know how to crack that nut. Hopefully, when this happens, somebody will.
Hey, Pete, I would just suggest you take another look at that. I do believe those are earmarks. What we got was an earmark, so.
Thank you.
I don't believe it's a grant. If there were grants out there by Executive Office of Elder Affairs, we would have known that.
Thank you. Ms. McCaffrey?
She asked my question.
Okay, all right.
About the
Okay, Ms. Boyardi?
Because I don't know the complete policies as far as, can this number can the select board change the recommended number, or can the coalition?
The select board can put anything that they vote on this warrant.
But
They've presented us a warrant that has this number on it.
correct, but if the Coalition of Aging goes back to the select board, say this, can
The
that?
select board can go back to the select board. There's a select board member here. I'm sure there's a select board member watching, or who will listen.
Well, I'm
and we'll
asking
get-
is, can
Are
this
they
number
allowed
be
to? They can't.
changed?
If one's here?
Probably, probably.
Well, I'm just asking, can this number be changed?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything can be done.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, none heard. All those in favor of Article 8, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to Article 8, please say nay. Nay. Okay,
Nay.
We'll do a roll call. From my left to right,
Nay.
nay. Mr. Underhill.
Aye.
Mr. Lohr. Mr. Berube, nay. Ms. Garzon.
Nay.
Ms. McGinnis.
Nay.
Ms. Reyes. Ms. Boyardi.
Aye.
Mr. Stedman.
Nay.
The motion fails of a vote of nays, 6
To three
to 3
nays.
nays, to 3 yays.
Yeah.
Deirdre, do you have that?
I had, I have.
The following, Underhill, Lohr, and Boyardi voted yay.
Okay,
All
right.
remaining members present and on Zoom voted nay. Okay?
okay, great.
All right. All right, thank you, everyone. Article 21.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon.
I move that we recommend approval of Article 21, which would transfer from free cash $50,000 to the OPEB trust fund account.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that the committee vote to recommend approval of Article 21 for transfer from free cash the sum of $50,000 to the OPEB trust fund account. All those in favor say yay. Discussion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Thank you, sorry. Caught me speeding, sorry.
Ms. Johnston, can you give us a balance of the OPEB trust fund? Sorry, Johnson. It's a long day.
The current balance is $177,559.09.
Please say it one more time for the listening impaired.
Sure. $177,559.09.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, can you put that in, I have a discussion, can you put that in context for us? It's not a, I get it, it's OPEB, so it's woefully underfunded. It will always be
It's about
underfunded.
0.01% of what our,
Right, I'm sorry, I didn't, I'm still,
what our
I'm
liabilities
still in
have been.
our previous discussion, and that is appropriate, that's where it should be.
So, but as I understand it, putting additional funds into the OPEB trust fund will help with our bond rating. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So,
About 0.01%.
At least it shows a positive movement forward, right?
It'll
Yeah.
increase the
Right.
bond rating? Is that what you just said?
Yes, marginally.
yeah. Yep, because it shows that we're making an effort. And as I understand it, is there still just one town in the Commonwealth that has fully funded their OPEB?
Yes, and there's only one town that I'm aware of, and they did that with a permanent override to the town.
Brookline or Wellesley?
Wellesley.
Yeah, of course.
Wellesley. That's what I grew up.
I have seen some movement from other towns using their ARPA funds to put big chunks in there, but obviously we need ours for PFAS.
Exactly. Exactly.
Some towns have used ARPA for community centers and senior centers. Just thought
Exactly.
I'd let you know that.
But we have PFAS.
All right, take it to a vote. All those in favor say yay.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 9-0. Article 22.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon.
I move that we recommend approval of Article 22 that would transfer from free cash the sum of $300,000 to our injury leave indemnity fund. I believe we established this at the last town meeting, and this would put the funds into the indemnity fund.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to recommend approval of Article 22, transfer from free cash the sum of $300,000 to the injury leave indemnity fund. Discussion. I'll just start by saying this was, as Ms. Garzon said, was established at last spring, annual town meeting in the spring. And this would pay approximately 2 to 3 years potentially of injury leave or injury pay for emergency responders, essentially. Okay. Any further discussion?
Well, this should help our budgets going forward. That, we won't have wild swings like we've seen in certain years. This should help level it out so we can better budget in years going forward.
I don't think anybody can argue that this would be fiscally irresponsible. So, okay, all those in favor say yay.
Yay.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 24. Patrick, you want to give this a try?
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move that the town vote to establish a special purpose stabilization fund for the purchase. Oh, sorry. Was this Article 23 or 24, did you say?
24, stabilization fund.
I apologize.
Recommend approval.
Sure. The finance, Mr. Chair, I recommend that the Finance Committee recommend approval for the town to vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $300,000 to the stabilization fund.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of Article 24, transfer from free cash the sum of $300,000 to the stabilization fund. Discussion. So this one definitely has an impact on our bond rating.
Right, it's the same thing, that it
Same
shows
idea.
that you're following your
Right.
stabilization policy,
Yep.
and to keep 5% of your general fund operating budget as in your stabilization fund.
And what would this represent as the margin between 5% and where this would put us? Like, how much above 5% would this put us?
It would just put us $32,000 above where we need to be.
Okay. Any further questions? None heard? All those in favor say yay.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. May need some help here. Article 25, which is not in our motion packet,
It's in the other one.
so we may be able to, maybe a free, hold on, I think I have it here.
Excuse me, Pete,
Yes, ma'am?
did you happen to vote on Article 23? Did you do that last time?
We did.
Okay, so we're all set.
Mhm.
All right, great.
Yep. Okay, does anybody want to take a swing at Article 25? I know somebody does when they get there.
Mr. Chair?
Well,
No, go ahead, please, Ms. Garzon.
well,
Ms. Vice Chair.
I would move that we recommend dismissal of Article 25.
Second.
You beat me to it.
Sorry. All right.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Fourth and fifth.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, the committee vote to recommend dismissal of Article 25, which is a citizen's petition to upgrade and renovate the senior center for $3.5 million.
Oh, no.
Do I have it wrong?
Yeah, because it was the old 24.
Oh,
so
sports
it's the sports facility one.
All right, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna need that, we're gonna scratch that, well, we're gonna have to scratch it for clarity.
It's 25 now.
Yep.
Pete, it's probably better than this.
Which page? I'm paper saturated here.
I know.
Okay, it's not as bad as the books we get in the spring. Things are ridiculous.
Oh, God.
Last week's warrant.
All right, Article 24. No, 25.
That's right. Yeah.
25.
All right. Would somebody please make a new, since I made a rec of this, make a new motion?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon.
I move that we recommend dismissal of Article 25.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, the committee vote to dismiss Article 25, which seeks a citizen's petition, that recommends appropriation of $3.5 million or any other amount for purpose of an enclosed sports facility to house some athletic courts. Discussion. I'm going to jump in and just start discussion. And first off, I think we've all, since I've been on this committee, we know that this will, even if we're recommending dismissal, citizens petitions there's nothing wrong with a citizens petition, and they will go to the floor. This is, so on its process and on its basis, that, I don't object to it at all. It's just on its merits, in terms of not having been fully thought through the process and the due diligence that, say, the Council on Aging did with their proposals, even though I have some issues with those that I previously spoke of. This one has gone through none of that. Hopefully, it's caused some discussion and caused people to think about, well, what could we do? Even though, again, the options, I understand the position, the Council on Aging's position, that this by itself, or even in conjunction with the other citizen petitions, does not necessarily solve their solution. They don't feel that it does. I'm not in favor of it. along those lines. And it has nothing to do with the fact that it, it's a citizen's petition. I think it should be heard and it should be discussed. And I will be voting to dismiss it. Anybody else have an opinion on it that they'd like to share?
Sure, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Garza?
Yeah, I certainly welcome citizens petitions. I think they're a great way for us to do town government, and to hear from folks who maybe haven't had their voice heard, and to kind of put forward, let's say, outside the box ideas. And so I do want to thank the petitioners for their work in this. In keeping with my no vote on the new senior center, I'm just really sensitive to, our tax burden here in Millis. I think, like Mr. Stedman mentioned, it does impact our property values, but more than that, it impacts our, daily living, as we have to make sure we have sufficient funds to pay our taxes here in Millis. So, I definitely appreciate the work of the Capital Planning Committee and all the work that they put into the recommendations that they make. And I would certainly recommend that the petitioners liaise with that committee for, any items that they would like to see kind of put forward for the town. I think recreational, facilities are a little bit sparse here in Millis. We're doing better, but we could do more, particularly for our senior population. But I'm loath to spend more money and to borrow more money at this point, particularly when we know we have some big items coming, and it just makes me nervous.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Lohr?
I agree with the discussion of Article 8, that this article should be dismissed, Article 25.
Any further discussion? None heard. All those in favor of dismissal of Article 25, please say yay.
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 Those in support of, those not in support of dismissal, please say nay. None heard. The article was recommended for dismissal 9-0. Sorry about that. Article 26.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Underhill.
I move that the Finance Committee recommend dismissal of Article 26 to see if the town will vote to appropriate $3.5 million or any other amount for the purpose of designing, upgrading, expanding, constructing, and otherwise renovating the senior center located in VMB.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. The committee vote to recommend dismissal of Article 26 as just read. Discussion. My discussion points will be the same as previously stated for Article 25.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Garzon?
Yeah, I would, we'll see what happens at town meeting with the senior center. Our recommendation as a finance committee isn't the final word. It's town meeting members who have the final word. So we'll wait and see how that vote goes. And I would encourage the petitioners, if this vote isn't passed, to continue to push for other options that we can do for our seniors. We can't just say no and make do with what you have. I think we need to continue to push for better options for our seniors.
Thank you. Any further discussion? None heard. All those recommending dismissal, please say yay.
Yay. Yay.
Those opposed to dismissal, please say nay. None heard. Article is voted for dismissal 9-0. Article 27.
Want me to keep going?
You're
Mr. Chair.
on a roll. Mr. Underhill.
I move that the Finance Committee recommend dismissal of Article 27 to see if the town will vote to appropriate $2.9 million or any other amount for the purpose of designing, upgrading, constructing, and likewise otherwise renovating the Lansing Millis building.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the committee vote to dismiss Article 27, which proposes appropriation of $2.9 million for upgrading, constructing, otherwise renovating the Lansing Millis building. Discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon.
I would like to encourage, different town departments to continue to look at the Lansing Millis building. I think it's a shame that it continues to fall into disrepair, and I would like to see something come of it. I'm just not sure that $2.9 million is going to do it, and I'm hesitant to spend the money without a plan. So I'd like to see a plan in place, and then have us recommend approval of the funds that will support a plan.
I'm going to pile on to that by saying that I think the town needs to go even a step further or another step in that direction, in the sense that the town has several assets, whether it be open space or properties with structures on them, that we continue to gather. Last spring, or maybe it was fall, we purchased the Braun property, which I'm still a proponent of. I think that was the right choice. We exercised our right of first refusal because we forfeited tax revenue for that property for a number of years, decades, and that is our right. So we purchased it, and if we choose to sell it, that's the town's option to do. That, to me, that was the smart and prudent thing to do. But I never envisioned, and I don't think the voters did either, that we bought that for the purpose of holding on to it as a holding. You know, we need to find the best, most economically advantageous use for that property for the town, and do something with it. And the same thing with this facility as well. We ought to take stock of the resources and assets that the town holds, divest from some of them, use those resources to purchase another plot of land for a senior center that's better located than the Cassidy Farm. I mean, I don't know. That is not what I'm here to do, but I sure recommend that we look at the resources we have and we use them for the benefit of the town, which in some cases can be hold for green space and for open space or recreation space, but it's certainly not for all of them. So, any further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Arno.
Mr. Chair?
I'll defer to Mr. Stedman.
Mr. Stedman.
Yes, if you recall, there were feasibility studies done with a couple of options on what to do with this property that were presented to the CPC. They looked at it and turned down any funding for it. The building, it's small spaces. It's hard to use while it is distinctive, and it is deteriorating. I'm not sure putting money into it makes it a usable property. I agree with you, and I've done a lot of work to try to get a comprehensive study done on all the town-owned land that continues to get shot down. But I don't think this article really makes sense. All it does is tell the select board to look at this. It doesn't force them to do anything, which I think they should be doing anyhow. So I don't see this article serves a purpose. Therefore, I think dismissal makes sense.
Mr. Chair, may I just make a correction, please? CPC turned this down because there was no town funding, not because it wasn't a worthwhile project, but as you know, CPC would like to see contributions.
Yeah.
I'm on the CPC, Mr.
That's not what I
Stedman.
heard from Ms.
me?
Hayes, but
Oh, okay. Well,
that's
I was there,
beside
and
the
that's what
point.
I heard, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All those in favor of dismissal of Article 27, please say yay.
Yay.
Those
Yay.
opposed to dismissal, please say nay. Article is recommended for dismissal, 9-0. Okay, can we just have 30 seconds to do one last audit before we wrap up? Any articles that we missed? I don't think we did.
Actually,
Article 5.
can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Thank
Yes,
you.
we can, Deirdre.
Article 5, Deirdre?
Yeah, we didn't vote on it.
Deirdre, is that
So
what you were gonna say?
Article number 5 hasn't been assigned yet, and you guys have not voted on it.
Thank you, Deirdre. Okay, Article 5.
Article number 8, there should probably be a motion to dismiss it.
To amend.
During that
Which one?
the vote didn't carry.
I thought she said 6.
No, 8, because we,
I don't recommend dismissal. I don't know. I
So
guess
we'll
we
start with
we weren't
5,
9-0. It just didn't pass.
So do we need a vote to recommend dismissal if we didn't?
Correct. I believe so.
it failed
It
to.
wasn't-
Article
vote to
8, the
approve.
senior center, we voted 6 to 3, not in favor of it. Do we need to have, is that constitute dismissal, or do we need to have a separate, or do we just leave it as is?
I believe
Hold on,
it says-
Deirdre.
so
Hold on, Deirdre.
The vote
Hold on,
was to
Deirdre.
approve it.
Deirdre, hold on one
And,
second.
okay,
Mr.
sorry.
Kaczynski.
I think you usually vote to dismiss. Based on your language, I would say you're basically voting not to recommend.
Right.
So if you want to vote to dismiss, you need to formally take a vote to dismiss, to recommend dismissal.
I actually like better not recommending. That's my personal opinion. You know, if the committee wants to have another vote on it, that's fine. I just think that, to me, that is more the stamp of, we hate this. And that's not how I want to come across. I've said how I feel about it.
So in our language, it'd be that the committee did not vote
Recommend
to
it.
recommend approval.
Right.
Is that okay?
We've done that before.
Okay. All right, Deirdre, we're going to leave Article 8 as is.
It was just.
Okay.
Okay, we're now going to proceed to Article 5.
He gets there first.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon.
I move that we recommend approval of Article 5 in the amount of $500,000, which would come from free cash for road and sidewalk repairs.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to approve $500,000 from free cash for road and sidewalk repairs. Discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Garzon.
Of the comments that I hear from taxpayers in Millis, the number one comment is on our roads. So I would assume that town meeting members would welcome seeing this item on, on the warrant.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Garzon, if that's what you're hearing the most, it's because nobody's listening to me. Because it's sidewalks. Anyway.
My area of
I'm trying to-
town
I'm adding a
sidewalks
little
are.
bit of- I'm adding a little bit of levity.
for a sidewalk.
Mr.
It's
Mr.
impossible.
Gatto.
Thanks,
I
Mr. Chair.
think Orchard Street should have too.
I've heard mention of a sidewalk committee. I don't know if we can, during the town meeting, tie some sort of interest or get people involved or try to, bring that committee back to life through this article, but
Well, we
maybe
just
that's-
had our volunteer for Article 5. I don't know if you guys heard it, but I think I heard
Yeah, I think I
Mr.
heard
Gatto volunteered for Article 5.
And the sidewalk committee.
And that's the best way to make a pitch for that. So, Mr. Gatto, will you accept that nomination?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? None heard? All those in favor of recommending approval for Article 5, free cash for $500,000 for road and sidewalks, please say yay.
Yay.
And any opposed?
Yay.
Thank you. Any opposed? None heard? Motion passes 9-0. Okay, now I think we got it.
How about Article 6?
Say it again, John?
How about
We
Article
approved
6?
it.
Did we vote on that?
Yep,
Yes, we did.
we
Yes.
approved it.
Yep, motion passed 8-0. Okay. All right, so some housekeeping.
What about Article 28?
Article 28 was dismissed last week.
Oh, that's right, sorry.
So housekeeping, article synopses, literally 2 sentences. If you have 3 or more sentences, try to go back and get it down to 2, but literally 2 or 3 sentences. which just basically synopsizes the article. It really is redundant, and if you're putting a lot of thought into the synopsis, save it for the discussion, okay? Because the article, I don't even know if anybody reads the synopses, but we do them. The discussion portion, there's no timeline on that. That is where you really need to spend maybe 30 minutes writing these synopses, get them to Deirdre and I no later than Friday, okay? Deirdre and I be working over the weekend to get these to the printer for Monday morning, right, Deirdre?
Correct, yes.
She's like, what? I'm not working this weekend.
Cancel that trip abroad, Deirdre.
I have a question.
Ms. Garzon?
So on the personal plan amendments, is that document going to be provided in the FinCom report or not?
Typically it is, and I believe that'll be available tomorrow.
Yes, that is entirely your decision. It will be, I mean, it's just one small change from what you received, so we'll have that to Deirdre tomorrow.
I just mean in the synopsis, obviously I don't have to write out every single change to the personnel plan amendment.
Yeah,
So
I
if
mean-
the amendment is going to be provided in the FinCom report, I can just reference that.
Yeah, I mean, it's about an
Correct.
8-page document.
Right, which adds to the
So if you
cost.
want to, how you want to reference it, you know, to maybe a link on the town's website in your report to reference it or something like that, may be the best thing versus.
Is there a link, and I mean upfront, not 6 links deep, but is there a link on the town website that says town meeting materials? Or could there be?
There will be, as soon as, you know, this is finalized by, you know, later this week, we'll have a link right on the homepage that has.
Because I would be comfortable.
The warrant and your flyer.
Right. I would be comfortable putting this report, the personnel plan
Personnel
amendment,
plan, yeah.
that document, if it's front page, if it's,
Yeah.
you know, millisma.gov, there's a link, town meeting materials, and then it's there. So it's 2-3 clicks tops. If it's,
You open the homepage and of the website, and there'll be a link, you
Yep.
click it, and it lists all the documents
And
right
then you
there.
choose the one you want.
You choose the document you
Yeah.
want to
Thank
open
you.
for town meeting.
okay.
Yeah.
So are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, so Deirdre, I'll just, in my write-up, put a little note to put the link there.
In the synopsis.
In the synopsis, yeah.
Perfect.
Right, and
So
we'll
there's
have that, we
advance
should have
notice
that
and
up
then
and
it's there.
running by Monday at the latest, so people will have a week and a half to look at it
Okay.
prior to town meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just have a question for
Reyes.
you on the discussions of the citizens' petitions. Since I have never done a citizens petition discussion on this committee, I'm just trying to figure out what is required of us on the discussion portion, especially since we have recommended dismissal.
I would summarize the petition, and then discuss the salient points as to why, the points that were made, as to why we recommend dismissal. And I'm not gonna put words in people's mouths, you can watch the video.
Right.
But it is, the committee recommended dismissal because we felt ABC.
Okay.
And then you should state, the committee voted unanimously, or the committee voted 9-2, not 9-2, 7-2, you know, whatever it was. It was unanimous, but,
Right.
and conclude your discussion with, the finance committee voted such and such a way. Did we have any votes that were, within the math of a, minority opinion? I don't think we did. We did, the COA?
The COA.
COA. So.
There's 3 or more.
Okay, so those that voted yay for the senior center, I will let you decide, I won't let you, you have the right to decide if you want to assemble a minority report. And we can help you, you know, you can look in our guidelines, but basically it's you'll write a dissenting discussion. And you'll be given the first opportunity, if the moderator so decides, for you to present that right after we do our right after the person presenting the articles presents the discussion for our vote that we just had, if you're in the majority. So you guys can decide that, you know, you're welcome to discuss it here, but you're welcome to take it offline. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, that's your prerogative. So what we'll do, the pre-town meeting is on the 2nd.
Yes.
And on the pre-town meeting, so we're not gonna meet next week on the 26th. I don't foresee us meeting on the 26th. Is that right, Deirdre?
I put it up there just in case it was necessary, but I don't think it is.
I don't think it is, but if committee members want to get together, then.
In Halloween
Then we could, no.
With candy.
I'm
Candy.
I'm exercising my veto authority, which is none. I don't see a need to meet on the 26th. But on the 2nd, so if there's any questions that come between now and then, especially for our less tenured, for lack of a better word, members, if you are curious as to how the town meeting will go in terms of the sequence of things, we're all set, Mike, if you want to go. I'm starting to get winded here.
This is absolutely riveting.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right. So, but some people, you know, you want to know, like, okay, well, how does it happen? How does the town meeting, the sequence go? When do I speak, when do I not speak? It follows almost the same way that we run this meeting, and that is, there'll be a motion, there'll be a second, there'll be discussion, and there'll be a vote. So motion, second, discussion, vote. Mr. Canareggi will lead all of that. He's the town moderator, so you just listen to him. He'll have the script. He'll know who's saying what. You'll have your cues and just kind of follow whoever's in front of you. The good news is that Joyce and Jody and I are doing Articles 1 through 4. We've all done those before, so Patrick, you'll have 4, you'll see it, you'll hear it 4 times before, and I suspect you've seen it, heard it before.
Yeah.
So we'll
And
go
I've-
right through it.
And I've been elected to town meeting before, so not in those.
Okay.
Jody was kind enough when I was first doing this to kind of give me instructions on how to write, you know, how to present and what to, you know, the process.
Yeah.
I'd be happy, I mean, it's moderator says the article number, the presenter says Mr. or Miss Moderator, the moderator says the name of the presenter. I mean, I can send this to you. It was very helpful for me to be able to write my script.
Yeah, please, that was great.
You can ad-lib, or you can read, you know, hey, Craig Schultz he would do it all the time. He'd have some notes, but he was contemporaneous. You know, you don't have to have a script for your discussion comments. I would recommend you do.
But I like it.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I like script too.
And I would recommend
It's after work, it's late,
you
you're
try to be
tired.
concise, 28 articles. Yeah, so.
The consent calendar won't go to discussion, right? Whatever gets on consent, we won't have to then have.
Consent decree, they'll do those for very few of these in the fall town meeting. They'll do them in it really applies to the moderator. He won't have to read back the motion or most of the words. We'll still have to read when you'll have a new motion packet on the 2nd, you have to read that verbatim.
Yeah.
The motion packet. The discussion packet, you can do what you want. I'll just let you know that the town clerk will ask you for your discussion comments, because she is responsible for creating a record of town meeting. I personally have not given my notes. My comments that I say during town meeting are a matter of record. I personally am much more comfortable with what I say into the mic at town meeting, reflecting the record versus my notes, my discussion notes. Those are mine, and I just don't want them, because I may call an audible. Could be points made during the meeting that I may take something out of the discussion. You know, you do what you feel is right, but what you say into the mic at town meeting is public record. What's on the piece of paper in your hand is not.
You could extensively research an article and be ready to discuss it, and have pages of notes, and then they recommend dismissal. I'm still bitter about that.
Oh my
I had like
God.
5
You did
pages of
so
notes.
much work on that.
So it can just not happen.
I'm usually
I
happy to
can't.
give her my paper. Here,
I
I
have
don't
eggs.
want any more paper.
Okay.
I worked hard on that. I shouldn't have.
So, we have meeting minutes, or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'll take 2 more motions.
So, Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon?
I move that we I move that we approve the minutes of our meeting from October 12th as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from October 12th meeting. All those in favor, discussion. None heard. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes passed, Deirdre.
Aye.
And one last motion.
I move we adjourn.
Moved and seconded, we adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Bye.